Hey everyone, so today I just got done running 50 rituals and I love rituals, probably the only mechanic I'm going to do from now on. So instead of doing the last map together, I have a couple highlights that I want to show, and then we are getting right into the loot breakdown. So first up, we have my first big money drop. Whenever you see something you can't afford, usually it's super expensive because it is a huge drop. So we got the Omen of Dextral Annulment. I take a minute to defer it because I'm just like, wait a minute, this is something. This right here, that's something. And you can see how expensive it is to defer, and this is with a huge 50% discount from my Atlas upgrades. A little later, I do go over everything you need to know to maximize your tribute. I immediately go back to town just to check with Alva how expensive that is. Again, this was my first big drop after like 6 maps. So happy to get that. Yep, love it. Next up, this happened after the 50 runs I ran. You can see I have an Omen of Whittling. I defer it. I defer it again. And then on my second reroll on the third page, wait, what's that? I can't afford it. It must be a big one. Another Omen of Whittling. Back-to-back 3,000 Exalt money drops for 2 maps. Again, this happened after the 50 runs I ran, so I do not include these in the breakdown. And the final clip is just some crazy RNG. We kill a common enemy, get a divine. What's that? We killed another common enemy off screen, and it dropped a divine. So just a little bit of crazy RNG right there, and that's it for clips. Alright, so let's look at the loot tab. And it is impressive. If you know how expensive some of these ritual items are, you can tell there is a lot of currency here. But first, let's look at the cost, because rituals are expensive. So to get started, I purchased 6 ritual tablets for about 200 exalts apiece, so 1200 exalts there. And then we have the Audience with the King, 4 of these for your 8 Atlas ritual points, 2000 exalts apiece for 8,000 total exalts, bringing the input just to get started farming rituals at almost 10,000 Exalterinos. It is so expensive, but it is so worth it at the same time. So let's get right into the breakdown. So we got 226 raw Exalt drops, 63 Chaos Orbs. I got 6 Divines, which I think is a 50 map record for myself. Got a single Chance Orb. I stopped picking up trash uniques, so not too many chance shards to convert into orbs. 44 armorer's scraps, 17 gem cutters, 1,114 simulacrum splinters. We get these by having distilled emotions on our maps. So I have 60% increased magic monsters for only 3 distilled ire, so super cheap. If your build can handle the added difficulty, always at least run distilled ire on your maps. 504 breach splinters. So I do include other mechanic loot in the breakdown. Of course, if you are running even specifically rituals, other mechanics can still spawn on your maps. I think this is fair game. And then we have the junk omens. There's a lot of them. Resurgence, like 6-7 exalts apiece. Some of these not super valuable. Dextral exaltation. All in all, I'm going to say about 200 exalts for all of the junk omens. I'm not going to individually price them. But here we have 2 omens of corruption, and this is where things start getting expensive. So we have one Omen of Dextral Annulment for a huge 4,200 big ones. And we can see the total starting to skyrocket. We got one Omen of Whittling for another 3,000 exalts. Of course, in that clip where I got 2 more, that was after my 50 runs. So we're not including those 2 in this breakdown. And then I got 3 Audience with the King for another 6,000 big ones. And then we'll swing down here. I was able to get 5 Ritual Precursor tablets, and I got 2 absolutely gargantuan ones. 10 maps in range contain rituals, and re-rolling favors at ritual altars in your maps costs 11% reduced tribute. I think this is probably the best modifier, and I'll explain that when we look at the Atlas tree. But both of these, I could probably get a divine for them. For 7 maps, we're probably looking at about 180 exalts. Again, 7 maps, 180. 6 maps, maybe a little bit less, but I'm going to say about 180 exalts on average, even though I'm not going to sell them. Whoops. Wow, look how profitable this is. Let's see, cut that. We got 5 ritual tablets. Again, I'm not going to sell these, I'm just going to use them up myself. Now, I did get a greater essence of haste. I'm not including that in the breakdown because a greater essence, that's like a 1 in 50, 1 in 100 map drop. And a greater essence of haste, specifically, I mean, you could do 1,000 maps and not get one of these. This is worth like 450 exalts. Again, I'm just not going to include it because the chance of obtaining one is unbelievably tiny. And then we just have the chance items. We have 2 stellar amulets, so about 280 exalts, maybe a divine for both of them. And then we have some sapphire rings, just a little bit of currency. So I'm just going to say 300 exalts for the lot. And then we can also factor in an Astramentus. Never mind. But there you have it. 18,000 exalts for 50 maps. Rituals are so insanely profitable. Again, this is the only mechanic I'm running until the end of the league. I do just quickly want to mention that in order to get these purple omens, these big money drops, your map has to be level 80 plus. So you need at least a tier 16 map or tier 15 if the area is either irradiated or corrupted. It has to be monster level 80. So if I look at this map, because there's corruption here, it is +1. So if I even put a tier 15 map in here, you can see the monster level is 80. However, if I was to put a map over here, because there's no irradiation or corruption, I would have to use a tier 16 map to have the area at level 80 for those big omen drops. And now we'll just quickly take a look at the Atlas tree, because the Ritual Atlas is so powerful. We have 50% increased chance to contain omens. Of course, like omens, those are those big money items. And then we have a 50% increased chance to contain an audience with the king. Again, another big money item. Swing down here, you can re-roll 1 additional time. So instead of 2 pages of loot, you get 3 pages. So this is 50% more loot, 50% more chances at obtaining a big drop. Some people go with ritual altars always have 4 altars. Half the time you're gonna get 4 altars anyways. I don't go with this. I go with deferring favors at ritual altars in your maps costs 50% reduced tribute. And this is so powerful because when you get these big drops that cost 20,000, 25,000 plus tribute, if you do not have a 50% reduction to that cost to defer the item, it's going to cost like 4,000 tribute to defer it, and you're not going to have enough. So I absolutely get the 50% reduction to deferring favors, so you don't lose those money drops. And then we also have what I mentioned earlier, and that's re-rolling favors at ritual altars in your maps costs reduced tribute. This is probably the most powerful modifier, because re-rolling, even with the Atlas upgrades, is 750 tribute per reroll, and you reroll twice per map, so that's 1,500 tribute. But if you could stack a couple of these reductions, you can get your tribute reroll cost down to below 100. I actually have a screenshot. Reroll to receive new favors, and it's under 100 tribute. So that is saving me 650 tribute times 2 rerolls, 1,300 tribute for free just by having this modifier on the precursor tablet. Now usually it's not that high. I got some lucky procs with my Atlas tree, so 20% chance to double the effect of precursor towers. So I got a little lucky with that, but you should expect your rerolls to cost between 300 and maybe 600 if you only have one precursor tower using this modifier. But again, it's free tribute, and you want as much tribute as possible so you don't lose any of these items. You don't want to reroll twice, see an Omen of Dextral Annulment that costs 2,000 favor to defer, and to not have enough for it. Like, that would feel awful. Finally, to further increase the amount of tribute you get from rituals, we want to run maps with increased monsters. Again, I'm just using Distilled Ire for 60% more magic monsters. And you can also see I have increased magic pack size and increased pack size. Additional packs is also great because you want as many enemies as possible on the map. So there's more enemies you can defeat to get even more tribute, so you get those rerolls and you get enough to defer those money drops. And again, you can see just how profitable this is. So we can take the 18,000 exalts. If we divide that by 300, that's going to give us 60 divines for 50 maps, over 1 divine per map. And if you can't afford the 4 audience with the king, I would recommend against farming for rituals. Because if we took away half of the money drops, like, 1 whittling and 2 of the audience with the kings, we're at 6,000 exalts for 50 maps, right? If we get rid of the 50% increase. But you're going to have less tribute, 1 less reroll. So, the loot, it just drops exponentially the less Atlas points you have, so I cannot recommend this unless you have all 8 Atlas points for rituals. So that is just about it. As always, everyone, take care.